What's up my loves? My name is Paige, this is Pages with Paige, and today we're wrapping up what I read in August. Hello my loves, so welcome to this video. Today we're going to be going through all the shit that I read in August. I am blown away at what I got accomplished. I was participating mostly in the Magical Readathon as well as the Amazing Readathon, being a co-host for the green team. You may notice a very distinct lack of green on this stack. Life happened and brain said nope. So you will also notice that there were four green books that I really wanted to read. They are also not on this stack. It was a very, very, very chaotic month, but I am so chuffed with what I did end up reading. It's been one of my highest reading months. Like, I think it's the third highest reading month in 2022 and 2023 combined. I read so much. It has been the most amount of pages I've read this year. I got all of my Magical Readathon prompts completed. For those that were aware of the time blocking and exams, there will be a vlog coming out, but I'll just let you know there was one course where I didn't read my law book by the 30th. I read it the next day. I'm still going to count it like this is impressive. For those that were interested, I managed to complete every other exam before the allotted schedule time, but for law I did not read one book out of the two books that I had to read, so like neither counted for the exam date, but I read the first one before the end of the month, so I've still completed the syllabus. So just for those that were interested, the time blocking definitely was an interesting element, which I don't know how comfortable I feel re-instigating that for upcoming rounds. It was definitely a challenge and it was fun, but on top of the Amazing Readathon and just my chaotic brain, it definitely was a lot. And I think I could have made my month easier if I had have just let it fall by the wayside a lot earlier, but we still had a lot of fun and I was able to keep it up for the longest time. So you'll see that in the vlog. Hopefully I will be able to get that out to you soon. There is 3.5 hours of footage, so I need to condense that. With that, I want to go through the stats and then we'll talk through the books themselves. And we've got a shit ton to get through, so let's talk through the 17 books that I read in August. I also won't be going through which Magical Readathon prompts that they fulfilled. Just know that these were all going towards something. I don't think I read a book that didn't contribute to anything throughout that entire month. Like, everything had a purpose. Onto the stats. For August, I read a total of 17 books, which equated to 6,420 pages. I'm gobsmacked. I know that I had 2 mangas, a graphic novel, and a couple of other easy, quick reads that didn't have a high page count, didn't have a low page count. But in saying that, that was the equivalency of 207 pages per day. And I'll talk more about this in a couple of other videos, but I did 2 round trips to Sydney, which is 8 hours for there and back. I did that twice. I went to a concert. I still worked my 4 days. I had a live show. I did so much. I planned a readathon, and just the fact that I still somehow managed to read 207 pages, absolutely mind-blowing. This actually worked out to be 378 pages per book, which I'm impressed. I thought, oh my god, I'm hitting like 17 books. I'm going to have it be in the low 300s. No, 378. Like, that is a decent sized page book for 17. I'm chuffed. To clarify and break those down, I read 4 books that were in the 100-page range. I read 2 that were in the 200s, 5 in the 300s, 1 in the 400s, 3 that were in the 500s, 1 in the 700s, and 1 in the 800s. I can't even remember what that 800-page book. Oh yeah, that was that one. I also had a few little middle grades sprinkled in as well, so they were nice and easy to clean my brain. My average rating was a 4.44. I read 3 contemporaries, 10 fantasies, 1 graphic novel, 2 horror, which definitely surprised me. And now I'm trying to remember what the other horror was. Anyway, we'll get to that when we get to it. And 2 non-fiction. Who the fuck is she? I know that I wanted to read 2 non-fiction, Autism and Heels and In the Defense of Witches. Those were not the 2 non-fictions that I read though. God bless my soul. What other fucking non-fiction? What have I done? Have I written the wrong information? I listened to one just pure audiobook. I think I just needed to blast through, so I didn't end up reading alongside with a copy of anything. I read one audio and ebook combination, 4 physical books, so they're my graphic novels and manga that don't have audiobooks, and 11 physical audiobook combinations. I read 3 middle grade, 4 young adult, 2 new adult, and 8 adult. I read 1 book that was 3.5 stars, 7 that were 4 stars, 2 that were 4.5 stars, and 7 5-star reads. Gobsmacked. Admittedly, these are books that I've been excited about and waiting to get to, and I knew I was gonna love them. So I'm very happy that I finally got to pick them up and just feel so much love for all the things. I read 5 books that were standalones. I started 3 new series. I continued with 5 series. I caught up on 1 series, which the next book is coming out this month in September, and I completed 2 series. My biggest book was Inheritance by Christopher Paolini, which was 849 pages, and my smallest book was Dirty Laundry by Richard Pink and Roxanne Emery, which was 140 pages. My listening hours was 51.6. I have no idea. I have no idea. And in terms of publication date, I had 2 that were published between 2000 and 2005, 2 between 2011 and 2015, 7 between 2016 and 2020, 1 from 2021, 3 from 2022, and 2 from 2023. Yeah, those stats, I'm in awe, and I'm very happy to not repeat this. So straight out of the gate, for the New York prompt for the amazing readathon, I read Inheritance by Christopher Paolini. This behemoth was my first read of the month. I originally was keeping like the bookmarks that Amy and Allison is the one that created this time blocking idea, and I followed off Amy's one. So I had the breakdown of my actual reading sessions of this, and I haven't continued that for many of the books. We hit Face Off weekend and my brain just decided to malfunction. So this was the first one off the rank, and super proud that I managed to complete that within the first 6 days, and I gave this 4 stars. I am considering this finishing the Aragon series. I don't want to continue on with the short stories companion that technically wraps it up, and then with the new series following Murtagh with Aragon making an appearance. It was the quartet. I'm done. I now have to unhaul this book, which I was intending to anyway because it is literally separated. So that one is done and dusted and coming off my shelves. I was very happy with how this concluded. I think that if you're going to read this, I don't recommend the audiobooks because the way that the main dragon in this is described, the voice does not match up, and it pulled me out of the story every single time. To be fair, they don't actually talk as much in this last one. That or my ears adapted to it, but it just is something that throughout this entire series I noticed that I was constantly pulled out of the story because their voice was so different from how it was described in the books. And I feel like there is so much love for this series, and I definitely had a fun time with it. This was definitely a solid conclusion to the series for me, and I'm happy that I've read it and ticked it off, and I now understand the hype around the Aragon series. So the next book I read was for Mexico City, and that was Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry. I ended up reading this for the shield on the cover prompt because that is a shield, and I gave this 5 stars. I am so happy that I finally picked this up. I'm so excited to continue reading Travis's work. I just found this so comforting and wholesome. I understand why people absolutely adore it because it is that soft, feel-good vibe. I feel like there was still stakes, like they are low, but just the way that it was presented was so heartwarming, and you just feel so attached to the characters. It was very easy to fall in love with this book, and I'm so happy that I've picked it up and can say that I've read Legends and Lattes, and I'm so excited to pick up Bookshops and Bone Dust. I am counting this as I have started a series by reading this book because Bone Dust is a prequel. This is one start to a series that I do not regret in the slightest. The next one I picked up was for the Sapporo Lake, and that was The Slightly Alarming Tale of the Whispering Wars by Jacqueline Moriarty, which is the Second Kingdom and Empires book, and that's the Bronte Battlestone series. And I gave this 5 stars as well. This series has really, I don't know how to describe it in a way that makes sense, but there is something so wholesome about these series and these books. It is so easy to fall in love with them. I adore that it changes perspectives throughout and they comment on each other's writings. The illustrations in it are stunning, and overall it is just a beautiful read. I think that there are a lot of opportunity for children to absolutely fall in love with different elements to this, and I am so enjoying reading it as an adult. I said in my vlog, I don't know if this would be a 5-star book, but it was a 5-star book for the time that I needed it. I was definitely starting to get very stressed in August with what was happening in my life, and it just was everything I needed to feel so comforted, and especially coming off the back of Legends of the Lattes, I just wanted something that would continue those vibes. And I love the characters in it, I love their dynamics, it is so cute, and I'm very keen to continue on with the third one. So I'm curious to see what adventures they go on in then. Next up for the London leg, I read The Looking Glass Wars by Frank Better. This is actually a reread for me. I read it as a teenager and remembered absolutely loving it, but I couldn't remember anything about the story. On reread, I've given it a 4.5. I still absolutely adored this. I love the twist that it takes on the Alice in Wonderland story, and it's just so fascinating. I really like the images that are in this as well. There's not many, but the ones that are in there are quite stunning. The way that Wonderland is in this is so interesting. I get similar sort of vibes, more sci-fi based in this, but to Alice by Christina Henry. Not so much on the horror in this one, more sci-fi, but just those shaking up the Wonderland world and doing it in such a unique way definitely is present in this and in Alice. And I just really enjoy people coming up with these creative worlds, keeping it true to the narrative in a sense, but shaping it in a way that is so just fascinating. So I'm very excited to continue on with the series. I knew that I was restarting this series. I mentally DNF'd it, and I knew I wanted to reread the first one before continuing on, and I'm definitely so intrigued now that I remember this to continue on with the other stories, because the ending of this, definitely there was no remembrance of that happening, and I'm now very curious considering what the next book is called. So I'm keen. I'm very keen for how this series is going to play out. Then we hit the face-off weekend for Amazing Readathon, and so a lot of these were just trying to read as much as I could to fit different flags. I'm not going to go through what the flags are for that particular weekend. There was a lot crammed into one weekend. I was in Sydney and I basically just locked myself in the room and read to my heart's content. Probably lost a few marbles on the way. Not that I had many in the bag to begin with, but that's fine. The first thing that I decided to pick up was Full Metal Alchemist, the 3-in-1 editions, which is volumes 16, 17, and 18 by Hiromu Arakawa, and 5 stars. I fucking love Full Metal Alchemist. Just the characters, the dynamics, the changing of who the villain is, and their depth and growing in just concern. Everything that is in this just hits the right notes for me. It is so fascinating seeing these characters in these situations and trying to do the best that they can with quite limited resources, and seeing where this book takes us to. I'm so excited to continue on. I know that I don't have too many volumes left, and I'm not ready. I'm very not ready. I will be hurt, and I just want to stay with these characters for the longest time because it is so much fun and getting to be so fascinating with the systems that they've got in place. Next up, I read Dirty Laundry by Richard Pink and Roxanne Emery, and I currently don't have a physical copy of it because I lent it to my psychologist. So for this one, I gave it 4 stars, and I found that it was a very interesting look on ADHD. I've had a lot of conversations with Ash, and now as my psychologist is going through, we also work together, so like I'm talking to her not in a patient therapist sort of dynamic. It's actually as like co-workers and friends. Now I'm like, okay, cool. When she gets to particular points, she'll come and talk to me about it, and it's so interesting hearing her perspective on it as well. For me, it's a little bit of a tricky one because obviously it's a non-fiction and it's Roxanne's and Rick's experience with ADHD, the diagnosis of ADHD, and being able to framework the way that your brain works. And I don't want to devalue that for anyone because their lived experience is their lived experience. My presentation of ADHD is different though, and there were aspects of it that I don't struggle with. I think that it is super valuable in getting a compassion towards people with ADHD and understanding broad experiences of ADHD. I do wish that they had have had professional backing with it, contributions from their therapist or having talked to another medical professional in that capacity. I know that it's supposed to be a reflection on their relationship and the impact of ADHD in that sort of a dynamic, but it just didn't feel right not having a sort of professional layer to it, if that makes sense. Their framing their lived experience in the best way that they possibly can, but there were a couple of comments that I felt could have been potentially more detrimental than helpful. And that's only coming at it from my own perspective and discussing it with my psych and her mentioning a couple of other things. And I'm like, that's exactly how I was feeling. I think that like the biggest takeaways is give yourself some love. Don't beat yourself up for shit that really it's okay. And 2, don't forget to rely on your supports. The tag in that I want to say for that is don't abuse your supports either though. They are your partner, not your parent. I think there is a very fine line and every relationship is going to be different, and what that looks like for your relationship is how you do with it. That would be my facet though. Your supports are there to help you. They're not meant to hinder your life. People are shaming you for having ADHD and being a chaotic gremlin, then they're probably not the best support for you. I think it's really important to just acknowledge that we're all made a little bit differently and to respect yourself, respect others, and just not beat yourself up for things that it's a tough battle up here some days, so don't beat yourself up for it. Acknowledge, grow, don't beat. And I feel like that was a really powerful message that comes across in this. Next up, we switched gears and I read Pages & Co. Treehouse Library by Anna James. This is the 5th in the Pages & Co. series, and we're following Milo as he goes off trying to figure out something from the end of the last book. So I don't want to say too much, obviously, with it being the continuation in a series. There is definitely a lot that has happened to get to this point, and I'm just really loving this series. I gave it a 4 stars. I find that I'm loving being in Milo's perspective. I just miss being in Tilly's bookshop, and the train, whilst I do love it, doesn't have the same impact for me personally. So that is where there is that difference, but I think that these books are beautiful, and those kids that just want to fall into the world of magic, they're definitely going to find it in these. So I do recommend this series, and keen to get my hands on the 6th one because this is the one I've caught up with where the 6th one is coming out. It's coming out on the 12th. I'm filming this on the 2nd. I'm very excited for it when it does come out, and I'm caught up to be able to read it when it does. Then the next book that I read was Rainbow Grey Battle for the Skies by Laura Ellen Anderson, which is the last book in the Rainbow Grey series, and I gave this 5 stars. I adore Rainbow Grey and the magic, the world, just everything about this is so beautiful and wholesome. I really enjoyed the way that the narrative went. It definitely wasn't what I expected, and I found that the ending was definitely surprising. Like, the ending itself was not. How we got to the ending and the travel that we went through to see the development of Rainbow and their abilities was very surprising. I had so much fun. I thought it was beautiful. I'm sad that this is over because it is so whimsical, so wonderful, and I highly recommend this trilogy. It is only a trilogy and it is beautiful. So I love the illustrations in it, the messages in it, everything about this is just delightful. Next up, I read Penguin and House Volume 1 by Akio Idea. I gave this 4 stars. I had so much fun with this, but I realized when I finished it, I was so mad at this dude. Like, he does not deserve this penguin. This penguin is a bloody delight. It is hilarious. It is beautiful. It is so lovely. And this motherfucker does not appreciate it, and it hurt me. I was mad. I think there is only 3 volumes to this manga, so I'm definitely going to continue on with it. It's just very entertaining, and this isn't going onto my overall series spreadsheet because I do have a separate one for manga and graphic novels. I want to steal the penguin. I love the penguin. The penguin has taken over all of my brain space. It's amazing. You fucking don't deserve that adorable penguin. Anyway. So this is just like a collection of short stories about this penguin doing stuff for the dude, and the fact that his friends appreciate it more than the penguin itself. I mean, look at it! Not too much to say on this, but I definitely enjoyed seeing what shenanigans the penguin got up to. Next up, for Magical Readathon, not for anything for Amazing Readathon, I read Stiff by Mary Roach. This was a gift from Amy from A-Star Reads, and I was so excited to get to this. I will have in my vlog their pet pick using this because it was glorious and I want you all to be able to see that, but I adore Mary Roach's writing, so I did give this 5 stars. It was definitely uncomfortable at moments, but I just had so much fun listening to their anecdotes and seeing the different science behind it. I know that a lot of people find Mary Roach to be more anecdotal than science-based, and I can fully appreciate that, but for me it's the kind of science books that work, because I don't need science serious in-depth of the different scientific processes. I just like concepts thrown at me in an interesting, engaging way. Mary Roach nails that for me. And I think with their component of journalism as well, it's definitely a fun experience. I am so sad that I just ended up listening to the audiobook and not reading along, because I would have liked to tab a few more quotes, but is what it is. But basically, the introduction. The way I see it, being dead is not terribly far off from being on a cruise ship. Most of your time is spent lying on your back. The brain has shut down, the flesh begins to soften. Nothing much new happens and nothing is expected of you. And so that was the tone for this book, and I adored it. So 5 stars, absolutely fabulous. And that was for Pet Pick for Magical Readathon. Sadly none of the prompts match for Amazing Readathon because it would have counted for green, but that is a-okay. I think my camera battery is going to die, so I'm going to jump off, change it, and come back. Apologies for the angle change, but battery is now replaced. So, continuing on. I then realized I was 3-4 books behind for the Amazing Readathon, so we did what we could to try and catch up while still completing as many prompts for the Magical Readathon as humanly possible. So, the next book that I read was Lore Olympus Volume 3 by Rachel Smythe, and I gave this 4 stars. I bought it in August to read because I was just like, I'm on Struggle Street. I don't know what it is about this particular volume, but I definitely enjoyed the reading experience of it more than the past 2, and I'm not sure how to describe it because I feel like the artwork hasn't changed, but it has in this. I haven't gone back and looked at the other 3 volumes. There's just something about this that makes it, I don't know, different, and I really enjoy how this narrative is being handled. I love the relationship between Hades and Persephone. Obviously, I am a hoe for their relationship, and that is a-okay by me. And honestly, just the different character dynamics in play in this is very interesting. The way that they're approaching a variety of different topics definitely, I think, is done in a really exceptional way. And I was sobbing my eyes out at one particular section at the end of this because it hit home. And I really appreciate when you have excellent friend dynamics that are able to support you when going through some pretty shitty stuff. So I really appreciate the growth of Persephone in this and being able to talk about experiences, because I think that is crucial. And yeah, so 4 stars. It's not a series that I wholeheartedly love with every fiber of my being, but I'm definitely enjoying it. And so I'm very happy to continue on with them, and I just want to know what happens next, because shit's stirring the pot. And this was for the Rome prompt. The next one I read was The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. This was for the Santorini prompt, and I gave this a 3.5. I'm not sure why I didn't vibe with it. It might have been the fact that I was trying to binge read stuff too quickly rather than an actual fault of the book itself, but the story itself just didn't grab me as much as I was hoping. I think there was a particular point in my vlog where I was like, huh, I'm so confused about what the fuck's going on, and then I read the back and I was like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. So I think it was more a me problem than a book problem, and just having different expectations for what I thought it was going to be. And it was definitely interesting in a few different aspects of it, but there was also a lot of, not business talk, but greed and money and art shit, which I just didn't really care. So it was hard to feel engaged with this, and I was happy to put it down. I couldn't though, because I needed to keep reading. So yeah, it was just overall not the most captivating book for me personally, and that was probably having different ideas of what it was going to be about. There is like a hinting towards Station 11, and I thought that might have been a little bit more prominent, but it really isn't. It's just mentioned in passing. There were definitely aspects to it that I really enjoyed, and I love Emily St. John's writing style. It just, the plot for it did nothing for me, and so that's why I gave it a 3.5. I still can recognize that it is a great book, and that a lot of my rating is based off me, not it. It just was one that I was like, oh, I have no idea or care. So there were definitely elements with one particular character that had me so fascinated with the way that they approached life, and there was a lot of conflicting personalities that just pop up where you didn't expect them, which made it intriguing in those moments. This follows a lot of different timelines and a few different characters in those timelines, which, because I wasn't following along, it felt very confusing. At the end I was like, oh okay, like I see how this all ties together, that's really cool. But by that time I was already like, I need to be moving on to the next thing. So please take my rating with a grain of salt because I was not in the best headspace when reading this. Then for Cairo, I read The Heart Forger by Rin Chupeco, which is the second in the Bone Witch series, and I gave this 4 stars. I definitely found this one to be that little step up from the first one. The parallel timelines definitely can get more confusing in this one than the first one. I think there's a clear separation for the first one where we're following in a particular setting and then a very different setting in the first book, but for this we move in both. So it was like, where am I, who am I? But I still find these characters fascinating. I love the dynamics. I love just what gets introduced in this, and it definitely surprised me with just the twists and turns and where it goes. I know that not everyone is going to find that as entertaining as I did, but I'm glad that I did, and I'm finding that reading these closer together is probably the best way to do it for me, so then I'm not getting completely lost. But I'm very curious to see how the third one shapes, because I know the way that this story functions, so I'm just like, interesting. So I'm very curious to see how the Shadow Glass goes, but very happy that I managed to pick this up very soon after reading The Bone Witch. Then for Beijing, I read European Travel for the Monstrous Gentlewoman by Theodora Goss, and I gave this a 4.5. So not the full 5 stars, but I'm still super happy with this. The only reason it's dropped off of 5 stars is that was I understand why it is this long, but it didn't need to be. I think there was the opportunity to pause at a particular point, finalize off that narrative, and then continue on with another 300 to 400 page book for the second half of the narrative and then have the last book. I think that would have been possible and it wouldn't have detracted from the story and being able to hold its own a little bit more. I feel like we had the beginning story, the middle story, and the end story that we could have really done either without the middle one. There was just a lot of branching out. It felt a little bit unnecessary for a couple of points, and that's why it's not the full 5 stars. These characters, I adore. I love spending time with them. I'm not mad that it's 700 pages. I just think it could have been split to pace a little bit better into 4 books so I get more. Like, it's that sort of, I could feel that the pacing was off because it was trying to be bigger than it needed to be. And I knew that that was my main worry going in. I still think that the pacing is done well, just it could have flowed that little bit easier. I don't know if that was a publishing thing where they're like, you can only have 3 books, so choose of that what you will, or if they were just like, this is my story, off I go. But yeah, I definitely think there was the opportunity to do it in a way that would have compressed it just a little bit and shaken it up. But oh my god, I fucking love these characters. I love the breaking of the 4th wall. I love seeing them come into their own, their strengths, also their weaknesses. They don't shy away from the fact that these characters are fallible. And these characters are not perfection incarnate. And that was what they were meant to be. I'm very curious to see how Mary's story ends up going. I feel like I've got a pretty clear understanding of the rest of them. But I feel like Diana and Mary's story is going to definitely go in a different way. It definitely brings something new to the table in the 3rd book. And the vampiric elements to this were quite fascinating because we meet Professor Van Helsing. Just following these literary characters just really bring me so much joy, and I love being able to hear their stories, and the way that it's approached is just, it's fabulous. And I have so much fun with this series, so I'm so excited to finish it up next month, and we'll see how it goes. And I'm just, oh, I want to be back with these girlies. It's very, very female empowerment heavy, and I adore it for that. Then I realized I was running out of time, days, energy, and so the next 2 books for the last 2 legs were a little bit shorter for me. And the first was for the Tokyo leg, and that was to read something with a direction in the title, and I read Fly Away by Kathleen Jennings. Originally I was going to read The Ascent to Godhood by Neon Yang, but there was no audiobook for it, and yeah, nah, even though it was only 100 and something pages, needed the audiobook. So I swapped to read this one, which is actually one of my 2020 book hauls as well, so I was happy to tick that off. This I gave 4 stars because the Australian setting in this, love it. The audiobook for it is fantastic, and it gives the right Aussie dark vibes. This has that really fantasy based, whimsical, concerning aspects to it, and it was just very different, and it was something I wasn't expecting. I had no idea what this was about going in. I actually didn't even know that it was Aussie based, even though on the cover it says a superbly told tale of folklore infused fantasy full of rising dread and set in a sharply observed Australian outback town. Thanks Garth Nix for summing up my brain. I had no idea. Absolutely nothing. It looked like fairy tale inspired, so that's why I'd asked for it originally, and I was just here for it. It was very unusual. It's not the typical thing that I would read, but I'm not mad about it at all, and I think I would want to reread it at another point in time where I can sit with it and really just absorb it piece by piece. I couldn't stop listening to it. It just gripped you in, and the magical elements of it, the memory aspects of it with the land was just something that really resonated with me. I really enjoyed that. And then the last book that I read for the amazing readathon was Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark, and I gave this 5 stars. I knew that it was popular. I knew that I was going to enjoy it. It is now invigorating me so much to read Master of Jinn by the same author, because it was disgusting. I felt nauseated listening to it. I couldn't stop listening to it though. I started to read it before work and deeply regretted that choice, because I was like, I don't want to go to work till I finish this book. It was marvelous. I really have a few people that I would like them to read it so I can hear what they have to say on it, because obviously the main message of Monsters, the KKK, was definitely an interesting parallel that was just done so well. So many of the scenes I was so uncomfortable with, but I loved how it was addressed, how it was gone about, and just how much was packed into such a tiny book, and how exceptionally well it was done. So very uncomfortable, and I loved it. Yeah, absolutely, 100% a top book of this year for me, with just how powerful it was and how fascinating it definitely was. And I'm so happy that Erin was like, please, for the love of God, I have others, but this one. Because for my bookish peeps control my life, I have a prompt from Erin that is black horror. I apologize, I wasn't looking when I cut the frog, and it is a very sad looking frog now. So there's that one, which means she has a bingo! Oh, finally. So in all technicality, I was going to read Ring Shout for the December Buzzwordathon, and then I needed to read a genre blend, so went with fantasy horror, Ring Shout. And yeah, so I finally have a bingo! Finally! I still have so many things that I'm so excited to read and do, and I cannot fucking wait. So that was the last book for the amazing readathon, but I did have my lore prompt that I hadn't completed at this point. Everything else had covered everything, except for a bookseller recommendation. How the fuck one of these I couldn't think to fit in because I'd used them for other things or whatever. Like, I could have fucking used Ring Shout for it, but I don't know any booksellers that have recommended it. So I was like, no, we won't do that. We will ask Ash to give us one, because Death of a Bookseller was the green book, didn't fit for any prompts, that or I forgot. And so what does he recommend? And he recommended me a book that mildly broke me, and that book is What You Were Looking For Is in the Library by Michiko Aoyama, and I gave this 5 stars. This is one of the best books I've read this year. And coming off of the back of Ring Shout, I am so thankful to my friends and to my partner and to my family that are able to recommend me good fucking shit, because What You Were Looking For in the Library is a collection of 5 interconnected short stories, all following a different person who goes into this library looking for something. You've got someone who is wanting to transfer their skills and they want to learn how to get better with computers and stuff like that, and they get given a list of recommendations from a librarian, and there's also a book in there that is a children's classic which deals with a variety of different themes, like cooking something, how to problem solve and things like that. And the way that books are addressed in this was done amazingly and made my little librarian heart sing. Obviously I can't magically make this happen, and this librarian also like felt little souvenirs that match, and it's just I now want to take up felting because I've wanted to try it for ages, but this book has just cemented that for me. And it's in the capacity of sometimes you don't know what you're looking for until it's found. And the fact that you can find it in books, you can do it at any age. And the fourth story is one, I won't go into spoilers, like I'm happy to mention what the first one involves, but the fourth one, it hit way too fucking hard. There were so many lines in it that I was just sobbing because it was my feelings summed up perfectly. It was so nice seeing that in a book. Obviously life happens, but this particular narrative just is very reflective of my own. There were a few different characters that come up in it and all of them resonated to a different part of my lived experience, and it hurt hearing some things, and also hurt in a positive way as well for others. And it was one of those stories that I wasn't prepared for it. I knew that Ash had mentioned that it was like wholesome and lovely and beautiful, and you know, he's translated Japanese fiction that he absolutely adores, and just the way that it all unfolds was fantastic. So Ash brought home an ARC copy that I did in my, I think, July book haul, and then he took it back because he was listening to the audiobook, so one of his co-workers could read it. So I don't have the physical copy with me, but he's waiting for the hardcover to come back in. So I will have it back in my collection, and I've taken it off my TBR now that I have read it. I just kept it on because I was like, we're gonna get a copy of it eventually again. But that's why I don't have a physical copy, but oh my god. It's one of those that I would actually like Ash and I to own 2 copies of, so I can annotate my copy and not feel bad about damaging his. But holy fuck, holy shit, yeah. I was not remotely mentally prepared, aware, ready to have that shit thrown at me. I've messaged Ash like a photo of me crying, just being like, can you bring me custard? And he's like, oh shit, and comes running in with it. If you want something that explores the beauty of libraries, the beauty of books, the wonder of being able to make a change, that looks at re-sparking joy in different things that you might have forgotten about as you've gotten older, this is one of the perfect books to summarize that. I don't think everyone will fall wholeheartedly head over heels in love with it. There are very varied life experiences in this, so I feel like most people could find something, but it is not going to be in every one book. I definitely am so surprised. Like, I know Ash has fantastic recommendations, but I thought it was going to be the same as Before the Coffee Gets Cold, or one of the other ones where I'm like, oh, this is really, really lovely. It's a really beautifully written book. I appreciate all that it's saying, but it's not become my whole heart and personality. Nope, no. This is going to live rent-free here and here. So I hope I can get a physical copy soon to be able to annotate the shit out of it, because holy fuck. So that was probably the best ending to August I could have asked for. Having Ring Shout as the end to the amazing Readathon, and then what you were looking for is in the library for Magical Readathon. Amazing. I definitely had a lot more brain thoughts on some of these books than others this month, and I apologize for the length of this video because I know I've gone off on tangents. Hopefully I can edit it down to not be as tangenty. I'm sorry. This stack is very heavy, and 14 out of the 17 books that I read in August. Holy shit. My brother, pray for me. No. Ow. Let me know in the comments what was the best book that you read in August. How many readathons did you participate in, and did you lose your sanity like I did? It's a grand old time. Fuck. I'm so scared to pick them up in case I've damaged any of those. Yes, let me know in the comments anything you want to let me know about your reading in August, and how are you doing? I think August, July, June 2023 has been a little bit of a rough month for a few of us out there. So how are you doing? I really appreciate that you're here and you're with us and we can continue to talk about random bookish shit together. With that, I'm gonna bounce out of here and yeah, let me know anything down below. If you like this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of this mess, feel free to subscribe. And I'll hopefully see you in my next video where I won't fall under a stack of books. Maybe. Bye!